You know, I almost don't want to make this video because it's going to attract flat earthers and Hebrew Israelites, and I find their comments annoying. But one of the most unbelievable stories in the Bible, yes, this is more unbelievable than talking snakes. This is more unbelievable than a talking donkey. This is more unbelievable than splitting the Red Sea, than turning the waters into blood. More unbelievable than dead people rising up from the dead. More unbelievable than meeting Jesus in the sky and a rapture happening. It's more unbelievable than all those things. I'm more apt to believe those things before I believe this. And that is in the book of Joshua, chapter 10. In the book of Joshua, chapter 10, what we have going on here is Joshua made a peace treaty with this one group, I believe it's Gilead. And the people of Gilead was being attacked by these 5 Amorite kings. They said, Joshua, you said you was going to come help us. Don't leave us in our time of need because we're a servant to y'all. Joshua gets his army up. They get ready to go fight. Joshua is almost like a command, not necessarily a prayer, to this Yahweh God to say, hey, can you keep the sun up until I vanquish my enemies? Now, for you to understand this a little bit more, the direction to which Joshua was heading to fight these Amorite kings, it would put their back to the sun so that the sunlight would be a help in fighting the battle because the other army would not be able to see as well. So it's great for that aspect of it. Militarily, I can appreciate it. But according to this God stopped the sun in its place for almost 24 hours. Stopped the moon in its place for almost 24 hours. Now, there is a article from an Israeli, I don't know if it's a magazine or it's just a news outlet that was saying that, oh no, it was an eclipse. Eclipse don't last for 24 hours. As well as if it was an eclipse and it made it darker so that the sun is not shining, because of the word dam can also mean for something to not do what it does, then it would defeat the military purpose of the sun being in the eyes of the enemies. So their whole storyline is jacked up. But anyway, do you not understand how cataclysmic it would be on this planet, or even a plane for my flat earthers, if the sun stopped moving and the moon stopped moving? Now, before anybody says anything about there being an Aztec story about how it was nighttime for longer than normal and they extrapolate that to be a connection and proof, that Aztec story was said to have happened in 1600 BCE, whereas the Joshua story is supposedly happening in the late 1300s BCE or early 1200s BCE. So it doesn't match. Doesn't match at all. We got about 400 years difference here. But because I do not believe in a flat earth at all. For the sun to stand still, that means that the earth rotation has to stop, and stop suddenly. A sudden stop in the earth rotation would shift all the crust on the planet. It would create tidal waves and volcanic reactions from tectonic plates, sudden stops. It would literally be a world-ending event. 99% of life, more than likely, would die on the planet. You ever see that movie 2012? That right there. It'd be that. Because water and land, 2 different densities, all of it stopping at the same time, is not a good thing. It's like being in a car and you're traveling 80 miles per hour and then that person in front of you stops real hard and you stop the car and somebody's holding the drink splashes, it comes out of the cup. That would happen. Now, I know my flat earthers are going to say, no, this is even more proof that the earth is flat because God made it flat, because that's the only way that this could happen. And that would be the only way that could happen, is that the earth would have to be flat and not moving, fixed. And the sun would have to be within our atmosphere. The moon would have to be within our atmosphere. But even if you stop the sun and the moon within our atmosphere, at the rate of speed that the sun and moon moves, and it all of a sudden stop, it will still create tidal waves and all other types of cataclysmic events on the planet. You would have one part of the world in darkness for more than 24 hours. You have the other part with light for over 24 hours. The solar winds would just wreak havoc all over the planet. The lack of gravitational movement of the waves and it being studied and stopped in one spot from the moon would wreak havoc all over the planet, mess up the tides, everything. So this shit didn't happen. Like, there are too many things that has to there's too many things that would that are cataclysmic that would happen, and there's too many other things that would happen around the world that this would not be an event that the world would miss out on. There would be, just as people have a bunch of flood stories because of the Younger Dryas flood, there would be sunstop stories, moonstop stories, all day stories, all night stories, all around the world, not just in coastal areas like the Younger Dryas, but all over the world. People would have talked about that longest day, that darkest night, and Green Lantern takes flight. They would be talking about that all around the world. We would have it in the historical record, but we do not. We only have it in this book. My bad. It is in another book. Which brings me to the last point I'm going to make about this story that identifies that this Joshua story is a copy from another book, another story, that's probably just as made up. Oftentimes I get Hebrew Israelites saying, you need to read the book of Jasher. You need to read the book of Jasher. Because Joshua says, if you don't believe me, it is so like it was written in the book of Jasher. Now, there's a problem with that. The book of Jasher that you can find online, whether you're looking up ancient texts, holy books, no matter what sites you go to, those are forgeries. Sorry, they were forgeries. One of the forgeries was made in the 1600s and another forgery was made in the 1700s, and there have been others since. But those were forgeries because this book of Jasher has been a lost book, a true lost book. Not a lost book that they found that you didn't add to the Bible, but a lost book to which has never been available to any modern day time frame during the canonization of the Bible, during the canonization of the Torah. It's never been around. But it had to have been around around the 9th to 5th century BCE because they're quoting from it. They also quote from it in Samuel, 1 Samuel. But it had to have been around for those scribes to have made quotes about it. They had to have known about this mystic book of Jasher. And according to belief, the book speaks about, in more detail, everything from Genesis all the way up to Exodus. So, we're all the way up to Joshua and so on. So there were some texts about it. And the fact that it's called the Book of Jasher, it should not be called that because it has Ha-Jasher. And I don't know how to say it in Hebrew. The name Jasher is Yashahasher, some shit like that, because I don't speak that language. But the Ha, I do know the Ha would not be in front of a proper name. This is why the Septuagint and the Vulgate calls it a different name. But it was interesting to go look it up and read about it and read it a little bit. But it was just another bunch of bullshit. So there was an ancient book. The ones that you have now that the Hebrew Israelites are going to come on here and be like, you need to read the book of Jasher. Fake. All right, you're reading a fake. You're reading a forgery. It's as simple as that. All the historical scholars that I looked at recognize it as a forgery. And it's been known to be a forgery since the 1600s. So y'all can keep reading it. You can keep believing it if you like. But it's a forgery. But he does mention the book of Jasher, which indicates that the book of Joshua is doing some copying from a book that they already had. So y'all have a great day. Remember, always, you got to free yourself to be yourself because your greatness is not